I had it all planned out. 58 years old. 2 years away from retirement. Every detail map calculated and secured. Or so I thought. The spreadsheets were perfect. Color-coded. Updated monthly. I'd been planning this since I was 30. 28 years of disciplined saving. 15% of every paycheck into retirement accounts. No lavish vacations. No expensive cars. Just steady, consistent preparation for freedom I'd earned. My retirement vision was clear. A small house in coastal Maine. Morning walks on the beach. Afternoons writing a novel I'd been planning for decades. Weekends visiting my daughter Lydia and her family in Boston. Simple pleasures after a lifetime of hard work. I calculated everything down to the dollar. With my 401k, pension, and Social Security, I'd have enough to live comfortably. Not luxuriously, but comfortably. That's all I needed. That's all I wanted. My wife Elena shared the vision. We'd spent countless evenings planning, looking at houses online, discussing hobbies we'd finally have time for. She wanted to learn painting. I wanted to finally finish reading all those books stacked beside my bed. We'd sacrificed for this. Skipped family trips. Drove old cars. Lived in a modest house while friends upgraded to mansions. Everyone thought we were cheap, but we were strategic. We were planning. At 58, freedom was so close I could taste it. 2 more years of working as an accountant. 2 more years of early mornings and late nights. Then paradise. I had no idea what was coming. March 2020 changed everything. The market crashed. Not slowly, violently. In 2 weeks, my retirement account lost 32% of its value. I watched the numbers drop like I was watching someone die. $360,000. Gone. Just gone. Elena found me staring at my computer screen at 2 in the morning. Garrett, come to bed. I can't. I need to understand what's happening. The market will recover. It always does. But if I retire in 2 years and the market hasn't recovered, we're finished. All our planning. All our sacrifice. Worthless. She tried to comfort me. Told me we'd figure it out. But the panic in her eyes matched the panic in my chest. I called my financial advisor, Preston Wells. The next morning, he'd been managing my accounts for 12 years. Came highly recommended. Had impressive credentials. I trusted him completely. Preston, what do we do? Stay calm. Don't sell. The market always recovers. If you sell now, you lock in your losses. But I'm retiring in 2 years. I don't have time to wait for a recovery. Then we push back retirement. Give it another 5 years. 5 years. He said it so casually. Like it was nothing. Like he wasn't stealing 5 years of my life. I've been planning this for 28 years. I can't just... Garrett, you don't have a choice. The market crashed. There's nothing we can do but wait it out. I hung up feeling defeated. Betrayed by circumstances beyond my control. 2 weeks later, things got worse. Elena's mother Joyce fell. Broke her hip. Needed surgery and months of rehabilitation. The surgery alone cost $65,000. Medicare covered some. Not nearly enough. Joyce didn't have savings. Had always lived paycheck to paycheck despite my warnings. Elena and I sat at our kitchen table, staring at the hospital bills. We have to help her, Elena said quietly. That's almost our entire emergency fund. She's my mother. What choice do we have? She was right. We had no choice. Family is family. You help when they need it, even when it destroys your own plans. We withdrew $60,000 from our savings. Money I'd earmarked for our first year of retirement. Gone in a single transaction. I updated my spreadsheets that night. Ran new calculations. The numbers made me sick. Even if the market recovered completely, we'd still be short. The emergency fund depletion meant we'd lost our safety net. Any additional expenses in the next 2 years would require withdrawing from retirement accounts early. Penalties. Taxes. More losses. My carefully constructed plan was collapsing, and I couldn't stop it. Elena found me crying at my desk. I'm not a crier. Hadn't cried since my father's funeral 15 years ago. But I couldn't hold it back anymore. We'll figure it out, she said, holding me. How? The market crashed. We have no emergency fund. I'm 2 years from retirement, and I can't afford to retire. 28 years of planning. Wasted. Not wasted. Delayed. I'm 58 years old. If I work 5 more years, I'll be 63. If I work 10 more years, I'll be 68. How long am I supposed to keep sacrificing? A week later, Preston called. Garrett, I need you to come to my office. We need to discuss your portfolio. I drove there dreading whatever he'd say. His office was downtown. Expensive building. His success displayed in every detail. While my retirement burned. I've been reviewing your accounts, he started. The market crash exposed some issues. What issues? You were too heavily invested in stocks. At your age, you should have been more conservative. More bonds. More stability. My blood went cold. You were managing my accounts. You made those decisions. I made recommendations. You approved them. I trusted you. You said aggressive growth was necessary because I started saving late. I said it came with risks. Those risks materialized. So this is my fault? I'm not saying it's anyone's fault. I'm saying we need to restructure. Move more into bonds. Protect what you have left. What I have left? You mean after I lost a third of everything I worked for? Preston's expression didn't change. Professional. Detached. Like my devastation was just another business problem. The market is volatile. This was unpredictable. Was it? Or did you prioritize your commissions over my retirement? Garrett, that's unfair. I've always acted in your best interest. Have you? Because my best interest was retiring at 60. Now I can't. So either you failed at your job or you never care about my timeline. Which is it? He stood up. I think we're done here. If you want to move your accounts elsewhere, I'll facilitate the transfer. I left his office shaking with rage. 28 years of trust. Destroyed in 20 minutes. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every decision. Every conversation with Preston. Every approval I'd given without fully understanding the implications. Had I been naive? Stupid? Too trusting? I'd worked as an accountant my whole career. I understood numbers. But investment strategy was Preston's expertise. I deferred to him, believed his assurances, trusted his credentials, and now I was paying for that trust. Elena woke up around 3 a.m. and found me at the kitchen table surrounded by printed statements. What are you doing? Looking for mistakes. For something I missed. Some way to fix this. Garrett, you need to sleep? I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see that house in Maine disappearing. I see us working until we're 70. Until we're too old to enjoy anything. We'll adjust. We'll find another way. What other way? The market crashed. Our savings are depleted. We're 2 years from a retirement we can't afford. There is no other way. She sat down across from me. Then we fight back. We get creative. We find solutions you haven't thought of yet. Like what? I don't know yet. But giving up isn't an option. Her words stayed with me. Giving up is an option. But fighting back required energy I didn't have. Hope I couldn't find. The next morning, I went to work like a zombie. Processed numbers mechanically. Avoided conversations. Went home early. My boss, Dwight, called me into his office the following day. Garrett, we need to talk about your performance. What about it? You've been distracted, missing deadlines, making errors. That's not like you. I'm dealing with personal issues. Want to talk about it? I almost said no, almost deflected, but suddenly I was talking, telling him everything. The market crash, the medical bills, Preston's betrayal, my ruined retirement. Dwight listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. That's brutal. I'm sorry you're going through this. Thanks. Can I give you some advice? Sure. Stop thinking about what you lost. Start thinking about what you can build. I don't understand. You're focused on your original plan failing. That plan is gone. Dead. Mourning it won't bring it back. But you're not dead. You still have time. You still have skills. You still have options. What options? Work until I'm 70. Maybe, or maybe you pivot. Find new income streams. Adjust your retirement vision. Create something different but equally good. I don't want different. I want what I planned. I know, but sometimes life forces us to want different things. The question is, will you adapt or give up? I left his office thinking about adaptation, about pivoting, about building something new from the ruins of my original plan. That evening, Elena and I sat down with fresh spreadsheets. What if we don't retire at 60? I started. Okay, what if we don't? What if I work part-time instead? Something flexible, less demanding than accounting, but enough to supplement our income. Like what? I could consult, help small businesses with their books, set my own hours, work from anywhere. Her eyes lit up. That could work. You'd have freedom but still generate income. And if I consult, we could still move to Maine. Just not fully retire, semi-retire. We spent hours brainstorming, calculating, building a new plan from the ashes of the old one. The next morning, I called Preston, not to yell, to get information. I need to understand exactly what happened to my portfolio. Walk me through every decision over the past 5 years. He was defensive at first, but I pressed. Eventually, he explained the aggressive allocation, the specific funds, the timing of trades. As he talked, I took notes, saw patterns I'd missed before, decisions that prioritized short-term gains over long-term stability, risks that benefited him more than me. Why didn't you shift me to a more conservative allocation as I got closer to retirement? I asked. I recommended it last year. You said you wanted to maximize growth. Show me that recommendation. Silence. I don't have in writing. Convenient. Garrett, I'm not the enemy here. The market crashed. That's not my fault. No, but the allocation was your fault. You pushed aggressive strategies because they generated higher fees. Admit it. More silence. Then, I'm sorry you feel that way. I don't feel that way. I know that way. I'm moving my accounts. Where? Somewhere that prioritizes my goals over their commissions. I hung up and immediately called a fee-only financial advisor. Someone who charged a flat rate instead of commissions. Someone with no incentive to push risky investments. Her name was Dorothy Chun. She came highly recommended by a colleague. We met the next day. Tell me everything, she said. I did. The whole story. She listened carefully, taking notes. First, Preston was partially right. The market crash was unpredictable, but he was wrong about your allocation. At 58, you should have been 60% bonds, 40% stocks. You were 80% stocks. That's way too aggressive. He said I needed aggressive growth because I started saving late. That's nonsense. Aggressive growth is for people in their 20s and 30s, not people 2 years from retirement. Dorothy reviewed my accounts in detail. Her assessment was brutal but honest. You lost more than you should have because of poor allocation, but you still have options. Like what? First, we rebalance immediately. Move you to appropriate risk levels. That prevents future disasters like this. But won't that limit my growth? Yes, but it also limits your losses. At your age, preservation is more important than growth. What else? You mentioned consulting. That's smart. If you can generate $30,000 a year consulting, you can retire at 62 instead of 68. Really? Really? Let me show you the math. She walked me through new calculations. With proper allocation, market recovery, and supplemental consulting income, I could retire in 4 years. Not 2, but not 10 either. For years. I could handle 4 years. What about the emergency fund we depleted? I asked. Rebuild it slowly. Put 5% of your income toward it. In 4 years, you'll have $30,000 saved again. And if another emergency happens, you tap the consulting income. That's your buffer now, your safety net. I left her office with something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. That evening, I told Elena everything. We updated our spreadsheets together, built a new plan for more years of full-time work. then part-time consulting in Maine. It's not perfect, I said, but it's achievable. It's better than nothing, she agreed. And honestly, 62 isn't that much older than 60. I'm sorry I couldn't give you the retirement I promised. Stop. You're giving me a different retirement. One we'll build together. That's enough. The next month, I started preparing to launch my consulting business, build a website, reached out to small business owners, created service packages. The response was immediate. People needed help. Good accountants who understood small businesses were hard to find. My experience made me valuable. Within 2 weeks, I had 3 clients. Within 2 months, I had 8, all while working full-time. It was exhausting, working 60 hours a week between my day job and consulting, but it was also empowering. I was building something, creating a future, taking control instead of being a victim. Elena supported me completely. She took over household responsibilities I'd normally handle, cooked extra meals, managed everything so I could focus. How long can you keep this pace? She asked one evening. 2 years. Then I quit the day job and just consult. That's still 4 years until full retirement. I know, but I'm building consulting business now so it's established when I need it. This is strategic. 6 months into consulting, something unexpected happened. I loved it. The variety, the direct impact, the relationships with clients. It was everything corporate accounting wasn't. One client, a bakery owner named Sophia, told me I'd save her business. You found tax deductions I didn't know existed. You restructure my accounts so I can actually see where my money goes. You're a lifesaver. That felt better than any corporate bonus I'd ever received. Another client, a contractor named Luther, referred 3 friends. You explain things in plain English. No jargon. No judgment. Just help. That's rare. My consulting income grew. $30,000 the first year. $50,000 the second year. By year 3, I was making $65,000 just from consulting. Dorothy called it my recovery phase. Rebuilding what had been lost. Creating new opportunities from old disasters. The market slowly recovered too. Not completely, but enough. My portfolio grew from its crash low. Dorothy's conservative allocation protected me from subsequent volatility. 2 years after the crash, I'd recovered 60% of my losses. Not perfect, but better than I'd feared. My emergency fund was back to $40,000. Not the 60 I'd had before, but close. Most importantly, my consulting business was thriving. I had 20 consistent clients. Enough work to support myself part-time indefinitely. At 60, I made a decision. I quit my corporate job, earlier than planned, but the consulting income was enough. I didn't need the corporate salary anymore. Dwight threw me a retirement party. You did it, he said. You survived the crash and came back stronger. I'm not fully retired, just transitioning. That's smarter than full retirement. You're too young to stop working completely. He was right. At 60, I wasn't ready to completely stop. I liked the mental stimulation, the social interaction, the purpose. Elena and I moved to Maine that summer, found a small house 3 blocks from the ocean. Not the exact house I'd originally envisioned, but close enough. I set up a home office, continued consulting remotely, worked mornings, spent afternoons at the beach, evenings with Elena. It wasn't the retirement I'd planned, but it was good, really good. We visited Lydia and her family every few weeks. They visited us too, brought the grandkids to the beach, created memories I've been dreaming about for decades. One evening, Elena and I were walking on the beach. She stopped and looked at me. Are you happy? Yeah, I am. Are you? Very. This isn't what we planned, but it's better. Better how? Because you're working on something you love. Because we have purpose. Because we didn't just retire and become purposeless. We retired and became fulfilled. She was right. The forced pivot had led somewhere I'd never have chosen, but somewhere better than my original plan. My consulting business kept growing. By year 2 in Maine, I was making $80,000 annually, more than I needed. We started saving again, building a new emergency fund. At 62, I finally felt financially secure again. The crash losses were fully recovered. The emergency fund was restored. The consulting income was steady. I could have retired completely then, but I didn't want to. I enjoyed the work, enjoyed helping people, enjoyed the mental challenge. Elena started painting classes, discovered she had real talent, sold her first painting at a local gallery. Then another. I might start a side business, she joked. Become a consultant like you. Do it. We're reinventing retirement. Why not reinvent all of it? She did. Started selling paintings online. Made $15,000 her first year. $25,000 her second year. We were both working, both earning, both engaged. It was nothing like the traditional retirement I'd planned, but it was infinitely better. One afternoon, I got a call from Preston. I hadn't spoken to him in 3 years. Garrett, I heard you're doing consulting work. I wanted to apologize. For what specifically? For not protecting you better before the crash. For the aggressive allocation. For prioritizing growth over preservation. Took you 3 years to realize that. Took me 3 years to face it. I've changed how I work with clients, especially those near retirement. You taught me something. What did I teach you? That commissions aren't worth destroying someone's dream. I've moved to a fee-only model. Like Dorothy. I was surprised. Really, your situation haunted me. I couldn't keep operating the same way knowing I contributed to that kind of devastation. I appreciate you saying that. For what it's worth, I'm glad things worked out for you. I heard through mutual connections that you're thriving. I am, but not because of the plan I had with you. Because I had to create something new. Sometimes that's better. Sometimes it is. We talked for another 30 minutes. He genuinely changed, recognized his mistakes, was trying to do better. I didn't forgive him completely, but I respected his acknowledgement. After hanging up, I thought about sabotage, about how I'd felt sabotaged by the market crash, by medical expenses, by bad advice. But was it really sabotage? Or was it just life? Just circumstances that forced adaptation? Maybe both. Maybe circumstances sabotaged my original plan. But my adaptation had created something better. At 63, I officially considered myself fully retired, even though I was still consulting, because consulting didn't feel like work. It felt like purpose. Elena and I traveled, small trips, weekend getaways, nothing extravagant, but meaningful, creating memories we dreamed about during those 28 years of saving. One evening, Lydia visited with her family. Her son, my grandson Elijah, asked me about retirement. Grandpa, you're retired but you still work. Why? Because retirement isn't about stopping work. It's about choosing your work. I choose to help people with their businesses. That makes me happy. So retirement is about being happy? Exactly. That conversation stuck with me. I'd spent 28 years defining retirement as the absence of work. But real retirement was the presence of choice. I chose to consult, chose to work mornings, chose to help people. Those choices define my retirement more than any spreadsheet ever had. At 64, I wrote an article about my experience, how I lost my retirement and found something better, posted it on a financial blog. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of comments from people who'd experienced similar disasters, market crashes, medical emergencies, bad advice, sabotage plans. But they wanted to know how I'd fought back, how I'd rebuilt, how I'd found happiness despite the setbacks. I started doing speaking engagements, financial planning conferences, retirement seminars, sharing my story, teaching others how to adapt when plans fall apart. The message was simple. Your first plan will probably fail. Build resilience. Create flexibility. Prepare to pivot. People responded to the honesty, to the admission that I'd failed, that my careful planning hadn't protected me, but that failure hadn't destroyed me. One man approached me after a seminar. I lost everything in the crash. I'm 65 and working at a grocery store because I can't afford to retire. Hearing your story gives me hope that maybe I can build something too. You absolutely can. It won't be what you planned, but it can still be good. Elena joined me for some speaking events, shared her perspective, how she'd supported me, how she'd adapted her own dreams. I thought retirement meant Garrett would finally relax, she told audiences. Instead, he works harder than ever, but he's happier than ever. That's what matters. At 65, I qualified for Medicare. One less expense. One more piece of financial stability. My consulting income remained steady at $80,000 annually. Elena's art was bringing in $30,000. We were comfortable, secure, happy. We'd recovered everything we'd lost in the crash. Plus more, the forced adaptation had led to income streams I'd never have created otherwise. One afternoon, I calculated our current net worth versus what we'd have had if the crash had never happened. We were actually ahead. Not by much, but ahead. The consulting income over 5 years had exceeded what I'd have earned from my original retirement accounts. Elena's art income was pure bonus. We're better off financially than if nothing had gone wrong. I told her. How is that possible? Because the crash forced me to create income instead of just withdrawing savings. Active income beats passive income when you're healthy enough to work. So the sabotage actually helped us? In a weird way, yes. That realization was profound. What I'd experienced as sabotage had actually been redirection. Painful redirection, but ultimately beneficial. At 66, I scaled back consulting to 10 clients. Enough to stay engaged. Not enough to feel overwhelmed. I had more time for writing. For the novel I'd always planned. I finished the first draft in 8 months. Spent another 6 months revising. Published it independently. It wasn't a bestseller, but it sold steadily. Another small income stream. Elena's art was featured in a gallery exhibition. Sold 4 pieces in one night. She was glowing, fulfilled, living retirement neither of us had imagined, but both of us loved. One day, I got a call from a reporter. She was writing a story about people who'd recovered from the 2020 market crash. Your name came up multiple times in my research. People say you're an example of successful adaptation. Can I interview you? Sure. The interview turned into a feature article, then a podcast interview, then an invitation to write a book about retirement resilience. I wrote the book over the next year. Sabotage Plans: How to Build a Better Retirement from the Ruins of Your Original One. It became a bestseller in the retirement planning category. Not because I was a financial expert, because I was honest about failure and adaptation. The book advance and royalties added another income stream. I was making more in retirement than I'd made working full-time as an accountant. Elena and I laughed about it. Remember when we thought we'd be scraping by? She said. Remember when I cried at the kitchen table thinking everything was lost? You found it again, just not where you expected. At 67, I looked back at 58-year-old me, the man who'd watched his retirement account crash, who'd depleted his emergency fund, who'd felt betrayed by his financial advisor. I wanted to tell him, you'll be okay. Better than okay. The sabotage will lead somewhere you can't imagine yet, but you have to keep moving, keep adapting, keep fighting. At 68, I officially stopped consulting completely. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. I'd built enough passive income from book royalties and Elena's art that we didn't need the consulting money anymore. But I kept the website up. Occasionally took a client if they were referred by someone I respected. Stayed connected to the work without being bound by it. That's when I realized I'd achieved something better than my original retirement plan. I'd achieved financial freedom. True freedom. Not just enough money to retire. Enough money to choose everything. Choose when to work. Choose when to travel. Choose how to spend every hour. That's what retirement was supposed to be. And I'd found it through forced adaptation. Looking back, I could identify the exact moments that felt like sabotage. The market crash that destroyed a third of my savings. The medical emergency that depleted my emergency fund. The financial advisor who prioritized commissions over my goals. The forced delay of my retirement timeline. Each moment had felt like an ending, like my dream dying. But each had actually been a redirection, a push towards something better that I'd never have chosen voluntarily. Elena and I were having dinner one evening. Our small house in Maine. Ocean breeze through open windows. She looked at me and smiled. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the market hadn't crashed? Sometimes. Why? We'd be living here, but you wouldn't be consulting. I wouldn't be painting. You wouldn't have written a book. We wouldn't have found these new purposes. So you're saying the crash was good? I'm saying maybe it was necessary. Maybe we needed to lose the old plan to find a better one. She was right. We'd needed the sabotage, needed the forced adaptation, needed to rebuild from scratch to discover what retirement could actually be. At 69, I was invited to speak at a national retirement conference. 5,000 attendees. The topic, when your retirement plan fails. I stood on that stage and told my story. The whole story. The crash. The panic. The betrayal. The adaptation. The unexpected success. I spent 28 years planning retirement. I said, then that plan was destroyed in 3 weeks. I thought my life was over. Turns out it was just beginning. The audience was silent, listening, understanding. Most of you have experienced some form of sabotage, market crashes, medical expenses, bad advice, unexpected setbacks. You're sitting here wondering if you'll ever recover, if your retirement dreams are dead. Let me tell you something. Your original plans are probably dead. That's okay, because new plans can be better, but only if you're willing to adapt, to pivot, to build something new instead of mourning something old. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, dozens of people approached me, shared their own sabotage stories, asked for advice, thanked me for the honesty. One woman, probably 70, grabbed my hand. I lost everything in 2008. I'm still working because I thought I'd never recover. Your story makes me think maybe I still can. You absolutely can. Start today. Build one small income stream. Then another. Give yourself 5 years. You'll be amazed at what you can create. She cried. So did I, because I understood her pain, her fear, her sense of betrayal, and I knew she could overcome it because I had. Elena and I celebrated our 70th birthdays together. We've been married 45 years, survived countless challenges, but the retirement sabotage had been the biggest and the most transformative. If you could go back, she asked, would you change anything? I'd warn myself about Preston's allocation strategy, save myself the crash losses. But then you wouldn't have built the consulting business, wouldn't have written the book, wouldn't have found this life. You're right. I guess I wouldn't change anything. At 71, I decided to mentor young professionals, teach them what I'd learned, not just about accounting, about career planning, financial preparation, building resilience. I volunteered at a community college, taught a class called Career and Financial Resilience. 20 students, all ages, all struggling with various challenges. I shared my story, the sabotage, the recovery, the lessons. They listened intently. One student, a 40-year-old woman named Camille, approached me after class. I just lost my job. I'm terrified. Your story makes me think maybe this isn't the end. It's not the end. It's a redirection. What do you want to do that you haven't been able to do? I've always wanted to start a catering business, but I was afraid to leave steady employment. Well, now you have a push. Use this. Build something from it. She did. Started the business. Within a year, she was thriving. Told me I'd change her life. But I hadn't changed her life. Circumstances had. I'd just shown her how to respond to those circumstances productively instead of destructively. At 72, Elena and I reflected on our journey. 12 years since the crash. 10 years since we'd moved to Maine. We'd built a life neither of us had imagined. I used to think the crash destroyed us, I said. Now I think it freed us. Freed us how? Freed us from rigid thinking, from the belief that retirement had to look one specific way. It forced us to be creative, to adapt, to find meaning in unexpected places. So you're grateful for the sabotage? Not exactly grateful, but I recognize it led somewhere good. That's enough. Looking back, I could identify specific lessons from each sabotage moment. The market crash taught me not to overconcentrate in risky assets near retirement. Diversification isn't exciting, but it's protective. The medical emergency taught me that emergency funds are essential. You can't predict what will go wrong. You can only prepare for something to go wrong. Preston's bad advice taught me to vet financial advisors carefully. Ask about fee structures. Understand conflicts of interest. Trust but verify. The forced retirement delay taught me that timelines are flexible. Arbitrary retirement ages are just that, arbitrary. What matters is readiness, not age. The pivot to consulting taught me that skills are transferable. That experience has value. That starting something new is possible at any age. The unexpected success taught me that failure often redirects us toward better outcomes. That closed doors sometimes protect us from paths that weren't meant for us. At 73, I compiled these lessons into a second book, The Resilient Retirement, 7 Lessons from Financial Sabotage. This book was more practical than the first. Step-by-step guidance for rebuilding after setbacks. Worksheets, calculators, specific strategies. It sold even better than the first book. People needed practical solutions, not just inspirational stories. I used the royalties to create a scholarship fund for people over 50 returning to school or starting businesses, for people rebuilding after financial disasters. The first year, we helped 12 people. The second year, 25. The fund grew. The impact multiplied. Elena contributed too, donated paintings to charity auctions, taught free art classes to seniors, used her success to lift others. This is what retirement should be, she said one evening, using what you've built to help others build. At 74, I received a message from Preston. He'd read both my books, wanted to meet. We met at a coffee shop in Portland. He looked older, humbler, different from the confident advisor I'd known. I've recommended your books to all my clients, he said, especially those approaching retirement. Why? Because you teach what I fail to teach. That plans will probably fail. That adaptation matters more than perfect planning. That resilience is the real key to successful retirement. Those are hard lessons to sell. That's why most advisors don't teach them. We sell certainty, security, perfect plans. Your books admit that's mostly illusion. Are you still doing fee-only advising? Yes, and I'm teaching other advisors to do the same. Your situation changed how I approach this work. I can't undo the damage I did to your original plan, but I can prevent it from happening to others. I respected that. He genuinely learned, changed, grown from his mistakes. We stayed in touch after that. Not friends exactly, but colleagues, both teaching financial resilience from different angles. At 75, I reduced my speaking engagements. The travel was getting tiring, but I continued writing, blogging, teaching online. Elena was still painting, slower now, but consistently. Her work had matured, deepened. Galleries fought to display her pieces. Our consulting and art income remained steady. We were financially secure beyond anything we'd imagined at 58. Remember when we thought we'd be scraping by? I asked her one evening. I remember you crying at the kitchen table thinking everything was lost. If only we'd known. We couldn't have known. That's the point. We couldn't see how the sabotage would redirect us. We just had to trust and keep moving. At 76, I was diagnosed with early-stage prostate cancer. Treatable, manageable, but a reminder of mortality. During treatment, I thought about time, about how much I had left, about what I wanted to do with it. I'd spent 12 years building a retirement I'd never planned, helping others do the same, writing, speaking, teaching. It had been fulfilling, but I wanted something more, something personal, something just for me and Elena. What do you want to do? She asked one evening. Bucket list stuff, before we can't. I want to visit every state, stay a week in each one, really see the country we've lived in our whole lives. Let's do it. We spent the next 2 years traveling, slowly, leisurely, one state at a time, experiencing places we'd always rushed through or ignored. We funded it with book royalties and art sales, money we created after the crash, money that wouldn't have existed if the sabotage hadn't forced us to build new income streams. In Montana, we hiked mountains. In Louisiana, we ate incredible food. In Maine, our home, we appreciated even more after seeing everywhere else. Each state taught us something about the country, about ourselves, about what mattered. At 78, we finished our 50-state tour, exhausted but fulfilled. We'd done something few people do, seen everything, experienced everything. Worth it. I asked Elena as we unpacked. Every mile, every moment, worth it. We settled back into Maine, our small house, our quiet routine. But we've been transformed by the journey, expanded by the experiences. At 79, I sat down and calculated everything. Every dollar earned since the crash. Every income stream created. Every unexpected success. The consulting business had generated over $800,000 across 12 years. The books had generated $300,000. Elena's art had generated $400,000. $1.5 million. Created after retirement. Created from forced adaptation. If the crash had never happened, I'd have retired at 60 with my original savings. Lived off that for 19 years. Been comfortable but not wealthy. Instead, I'd worked part-time, built multiple income streams, and ended up significantly wealthier. All because of sabotage. The irony wasn't lost on me. The thing I'd feared most, the destruction of my retirement plan, had led to the thing I valued most, financial freedom and purposeful work. Elena and I were having dinner. I showed her the calculations. So we're millionaires because our plan failed, she laughed. Basically, if everything had gone perfectly, we'd be worth less. Life is weird. Life rewards adaptation. At 80, I officially stopped all work. No more consulting. No more writing. No more speaking. Just living. Just being. Elena was 81. Still painting occasionally. But mostly we just enjoyed time together. Walks. Conversations. Visits with family. Lydia's kids were grown now. Elijah was 32. Had his own children. I was a great-grandfather. The cycle continuing. Tell me about your retirement. Elijah asked during a visit. Everyone says you're some kind of retirement guru. I'm not a guru. I just adapted when my plan failed. But how? Most people give up when things go wrong. Most people mourn what they lost. I mourned for about a month. Then I started building something new. That's the difference. What made you start building instead of giving up? Your grandmother. She told me giving up wasn't an option, that we'd fight back. That pushed me to action. Elijah thought about that. I'm 28, just starting to save for retirement. Should I even bother planning? If plans just fail anyway? Plan. But plan flexibly. Save consistently. But know your first plan will probably get sabotaged by markets, by emergencies, by life. When that happens, adapt quickly. That's the real skill. So expect failure? Expect change. Change isn't failure. It's just redirection. How you respond to that redirection determines everything. He nodded, understanding in a way only the young can understand. Before failure feels personal. Before change feels threatening. At 81, my health declined. Nothing serious. Just age. Slowing down. Needing more rest. Less energy. Elena was declining too. Her painting stopped. Too hard to hold brushes. Too exhausting to stand at an easel. We spent our days quietly. Reading. Watching the ocean. Holding hands. Grateful for every moment. Do you have regrets? She asked one evening. About what? About working so long. About not fully retiring at 60 like you'd originally planned. No. Working kept me engaged. Kept me vital. Kept me connected to purpose. If I'd fully retired at 60, I'd probably be dead by now. Work gave me life. Me too. The painting, the classes, the sales, all of it gave me reasons to keep going. So the sabotage saved us in more ways than one. Apparently, at 82, I was hospitalized. Heart issues, manageable but serious. Reminder that time was limited. From my hospital bed, I reflected on everything. 58 to 82. 24 years since the crash that had destroyed my retirement plan. Those 24 years had been the best of my life, not because they were easy, because they were purposeful, meaningful, full of growth and adaptation, and unexpected success. If the plan had succeeded, I'd have retired at 60, lived in Maine, walked on the beach, written my novel. That would have been fine, nice, comfortable. But the sabotage had forced something better, forced me to build businesses, help people, write books that impacted thousands, create wealth I'd never imagined. More importantly, it had forced me to discover that work isn't the enemy of retirement. Purposeless existence is. Work that you choose, that you love, that gives you meaning. That's not work. That's life. Elena visited every day, held my hand, reminded me of our journey. You changed so many lives, she said, all because you refused to give up when the crash happened. We changed lives. Together. I just supported you. You did more than support. You pushed me when I wanted to quit. You believed when I couldn't. You adapted as much as I did. She squeezed my hand. We're a good team. The best team. I recovered enough to go home. Weaker but stable. Grateful for more time. At 83, I sat down and wrote one final article. The last lesson, sabotage saved my life. In it, I admitted everything. The fear I'd felt, the despair, the sense of betrayal, but also the growth, the adaptation, the unexpected success. If you're reading this because your retirement plan just got sabotaged, I want you to know something. This is not the end. This is a beginning, a painful beginning, but a beginning nonetheless. You will mourn your original plan. That's healthy. But don't mourn forever. Give yourself a month, maybe two, then start building, start adapting, start creating something new. Your new plan won't look like your old plan. It will probably be better, more flexible, more resilient, more aligned with who you actually are versus who you thought you'd be. Sabotage forces growth. Embrace it, use it, transform it from a tragedy into a catalyst. That's how you win. The article went viral. My last piece of writing reached millions. Comments poured in from people thanking me, sharing their own sabotage stories, committing to adaptation instead of despair. I'd spent 24 years teaching this lesson. Now it would continue without me. The message was out. The movement had momentum. At 84, I knew my time was ending. Not imminently, but soon. I could feel it. The slowdown, the fatigue, the sense of completion. I'd done what I'd set out to do. Not the original goal of retiring at 60 and walking on beaches, but something better. I'd built a legacy, helped thousands, created meaning from chaos. Elena and I sat on our porch. Ocean breeze, sunset, silence. Thank you, I said. For what? For not letting me give up. That day at the kitchen table when I was crying, you said giving up wasn't an option. That changed everything. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe, but you accelerated it. Gave me permission to fight back. We fought back together. We held hands. Watched the sun disappear into the ocean. Grateful for the sabotage that had brought us here. To this moment. To this life. They tried to sabotage my retirement plans. The market. The medical bills. The bad advice. The delays. They tried. But they failed. Because I adapted. Because I fought back. Because I built something better from the ruins of something good. That's the lesson. That's the legacy. That's the truth. Sabotage only wins if you let it. If you adapt, you win. Every time. And I won. Completely. Unexpectedly. Beautifully. They tried to sabotage my retirement plans. Instead, they made them better than I'd ever imagined.